So welcome to another Blues Zoom with a face I'm sure you'll recognise, former Sky colleague of mine, Guillem Balague. And if anybody knows about Aitor Karanka, then Guillem does because of his great Spain connections. Thanks a million, Guillem, for coming on.
My pleasure, yes.
You recently did a lockdown podcast of your own. We'll talk about that later with Aitor, so you know him pretty well and what makes him tick. And I heard it myself this morning. Very, very interesting stuff. What do you know as we await news of a potential signing for Birmingham City?
I know you've got all the details up till now, so I don't think I'm going to add a lot. But the thing to say about this is that if it hasn't been confirmed yet, it's because of the things that you may have learned through listening to the beautiful podcast and my chat with Karanka. He needs to make sure that everything is in place. He needs to make sure that there will be no surprises. He needs to make sure that the project is the right one. It's not by chance that he has not worked since January 2019. He gets offers all the time. He got offers in that period since then from Egypt, from the Emirates, from Spain, and he's just been waiting for the right project. And the right project is an investment in time and years of your life and energy that has to be worthwhile. And this doesn't mean to have the biggest budget. This doesn't mean to have the biggest ambition. This really means something that he can enjoy and be happy with and help improve, because everybody's in the same wavelength. Now, to get the answers to all that, you need the 2 weeks they've been negotiating and perhaps even more.
Yeah, it's been going on a while. I think a lot of people felt that this was not going to happen, as you probably know. And I know you know Pep Clotet, don't you, from your Spanish connections. And since lockdown, the Birmingham City Blues have not won a single game. And Clotet announcing he was leaving, there was generally thought to be disagreement with the administration, and he announced he was leaving, which really brought on. I think in many eyes, a putting down of tools from the players, and the club only just avoided relegation. Now, do you think, given that Karanka had a fallout at Forest, that this would be an issue for him?
For what I remember of that, what you call the fallout, it was just basically him leaving because deciding that there wasn't, yet again, it wasn't the right place to spend your time. It is to a point, and then when it isn't, I think people who are less brave, like him, myself perhaps, will stay on. Will stay on just accepting either change of targets or lack of communication. I will accept anything, but there are others that wouldn't. And I think Karanka, having been an elite player and having been in places where, as a manager, he's reached the targets big time, he doesn't need to be really anywhere else that where he's not comfortable. That's what happened at Forest. And you're talking about Pep Clotet, and I took. I'm the chairman of a football club, Biggleswade United, in Step 5 in England, and I took all the coaches to Birmingham to spend a day with Pep and everybody at the club. First of all, it was amazing that Birmingham City, like in the past, others like Spurs and others have allowed us to do that. But actually, what you learn from that trip is that the coaching system is in place. Everything seems to be working almost like in a bubble. As in, they get given this job, Pep, and at the time it was Paco Herrera, was one of his assistants, former assistant to Rafa Benitez at Liverpool when they won the championship.
So this was a while ago, was it?
Yeah, it was. I think January this year, something like that. January, February this year. And the thing that you learn is that they have a job to do, and they do that job, and they do it to the best of their capabilities. But I think you also learn that there's a big distance between what happens on the ground and what happens with the ownership. And if that distance becomes far too long, then you probably feel on your own. And eventually, the reasons that they had given for a part in a company like Pep Clotet is not clear, and it will never be clear. But it feels like it's something that happens progressively.
Yes,
it's easier when the owner's there or somebody representing the owner is very close to the team, those things always help. But when that doesn't happen, it's more difficult to do your job.
Yeah, Pep is very diplomatic, obviously, and he didn't give a lot away when he left. But he's now back in Spain. He didn't say anything to you when he departed the club.
No, because of the reasons you say. He and a lot of managers are like this. While he's there, he will fight for him, for his coaching staff, for his players, and he will fight even with their own ownership or the fans or the media, whoever it is. When you step out of that, that's gone. It's the past. So rather not think about it. What I find interesting is that I would imagine, and I will hope that Karanka speaks to Pep Clotet about this, but that doesn't normally happen, does it? When a manager leaves, that's it. They don't want to know anything about it, and the new one that comes
there must be Guillem, a grapevine. They talk to each other. They must do. I think we know that, don't we? There's, I mean, especially
no.
Nationals.
I can tell you because in the last 12 months, I put in touch a top manager leaving with a top manager coming in, but I tried to do it twice more, and they decided not to do it. And they weren't from the same nationality, those 6 that I'm talking about. But most of the time, they were telling me, that's not the done thing. And I'm saying, but you've got a lot of information that the new manager will appreciate.
You're going to check, aren't you? I mean, Karanka, he spent 2 weeks now mulling this over. Now, a lot of issues potentially because of the background at Birmingham. He'll be the 6th manager in 3.5 years, which is a big turnover. Backroom staff. Who does he normally work with? It's pretty much a Spanish group, isn't it?
It's a mixture. I think he uses Portuguese, Spanish too, and it's people that he trusts, people that have had experience already in England and which with perfect English, and the kind of people that he likes, the kind of coaching staff that he puts together is one that challenges him. He's the one with the last decision, but he doesn't impose anything. So he likes to make sure that everybody understands football the same way. That's absolutely crucial. But also that they've got the possibility, and it creates the atmosphere and the culture of challenging.
Yeah.
So he learns. He's very humble from that point of view, and will be more than happy to be challenged.
Do you think though he'll be driving a hard bargain on that he gets his people in, because that is a potential sticking point? We understand that Birmingham will work with their own director of football, which is a big thing for coaches anywhere, isn't it? You've got to get the right. He's not going to dive in and arrive and see what they've got when they got there. He's going to want some assurances, isn't he? And do you think it will be that backroom staff issue? There's costs, obviously, because Birmingham may not have the amount of money they have had in the past.
I don't think he will come in and say, I want the whole of my family in. I don't think a director of football or technical secretary or whatever it's called will be an issue, because he will come under the condition that that's what's happening. Plus, remember, he understands that system perfectly well. He's not a manager that wants to control everything, but he will want to know what the role is of that director of football in relation to the manager and how
bringing in players. Clearly, that's an issue, isn't it? Bringing in players.
Do you know that is the last decision? The first decision with a director of football is what kind of football we want, what kind of profile of players we want, and then Karanka doesn't have the time to go and find players, but he will be given a list, and he wants to have a vote on that. I'm sure that's what everybody desires. But if that is the structure, that won't be a problem. If that was the problem, the issue, the big issue, then there wouldn't be a conversation. Sorry, no, I don't want to work with a director of football.
Yeah.
End of. But I do think that that's not the issue. The issue really is, and you understand this much better than me, is what kind of club are we, and what is it expected from it? Because if the ambition is Premier League within 12 months, and he sees that the structure is not right, or that the squad is not right, or the budget is not right, then why would you go for it? But if the budget is, the target is, let's do the best we can with what we've got, and quite clearly Birmingham City have been not in a position to promote, have they? So if the situation is the same, okay, but let's make sure that everybody knows that's the target. That means you, me, the media, the players, everybody. And then he will just set his sight into working towards it.
Yeah, as I say, before you came on, I spent an hour or so listening to your Pure Football podcast with Aitor, which you recorded a few weeks ago during lockdown, I think, didn't you? And very, very interesting stuff. For Blues fans watching this, if you want to find out about the man's background and what makes him tick, Guillem asked a lot of key questions. I noted a few things down here. You asked him, what will your next club look like? And his response was to create a family from the chairman down. Birmingham's chairman, don't know where he is really, in China, so in Hong Kong. Structured the CEO close, who works closely. Everybody on board and all in it together were the words. He hesitated a bit when he said it. Diplomatic answer maybe, but what do you think? I mean, would he fit? Do you think? I mean, the inference at Birmingham is that the CEO, who doesn't have a lot of football administration background, it works very closely and not interferes, but there's a few people who think that he's too close to the playing side. Would that upset Aitor, do you think?
We'll have to wait to his final answer. If he actually says, I'm joining in, it's because he feels that it could all work. You look around in the Premier League and in the Championship, and there is a lot of foreign owners, but everybody deals differently with their responsibility within the club. And some want to, constantly send WhatsApps to managers and directors of football, and everybody wants to be present. Others just let things happen. Liverpool is the perfect example of it. So, this idea that it all has to be a family from the chairman down, it's a great one, but stops being a practical one quite a lot of the time. Once he takes his decision, he will have all that in consideration, but at the same time, that would be the perfect answer. I'm not sure you find the perfect club anymore.
Now, his background, I mean, without a doubt, I mean, he's worked with some great people, Jupp Heynckes at Real and at Bilbao with Jose Mourinho. So his CV, I mean, he's learned from some terrific people, hasn't he? Interesting, I thought, again, in the podcast, he was talking about his time at Bilbao, and I think you put it to him that, or I think Heynckes suggested that it was quite an English influence up in the Basque Country up there. Is that right? Where they kind of understand that. And Heynckes said to Karanka, respect the people and the place where you are. I think that to me said he'd be a good fit at Birmingham. It's a gritty club and very passionate fan base. And if he gets the fans and what it's all about, he might do very well there.
Yeah, and you should think of the places where he's been. Nottingham, Middlesbrough. So these are not the most fashionable places, if you like, but as long as, and I have heard, and I've been to see them in both places, I've heard not one complaint about the weather or this or that or the people, not one complaint. So don't worry about that side of things. If he comes in, he will come in with the idea of adapting himself to the place and learning from it. And whatever happens on the pitch will have to do with that process of getting to know the people that he will be with, the city, and what the club is about. Because, yes, Heynckes told him that, but of course he is from Athletic Club, a club that is with massive roots on the local people and the local community. And that's, if you notice the kind of clubs that he chooses, they're similar in that, aren't they? They just have an identity that goes beyond the latest manager. And it's good to have a manager or a head coach like Karanka that identifies that and works towards that.
Another thing that caught my ear was when you asked him about how he deals with players. And this was very interesting that he doesn't put his arm around them. He tells them exactly what he thinks, and he finds that that's the way that they improve, not by being nice to them, but being, a hard taskmaster, really.
Yeah, at the same time, I know him well. I don't see him being like super tough, as in a headmaster. I see him being strong in his convictions and telling you what you have to do. And you're doing it because it's going to get you better. So convincing you at the same time, but very strong in his Basque. It's just Basque people are very stubborn in one way, but they've got very clear idea of where they're going. And I think that can only help the players. There is the other type of manager, isn't it? The one that says yes one day and no the other, and the player doesn't know where to stand. But managers that want to be friends with players are those that eventually they pay a price for that. So the experience that he had as a manager obviously has helped him to even be stronger in that. But the experience as a player tells him that he prefers people like Heynckes himself that actually treat him the way he strived.
Yeah, no nonsense stuff. And I think without a doubt, I mean, given his background, I mean, you asked him about who his heroes were, and he mentioned Fernando Hierro. You know, he builds from the back, doesn't he? And Heynckes, with that kind of famous at Bayern, when they had that incredibly tight defense, but 18 goals conceded in a season, and it's 4-2-3-1. Some people say, well, that's negative. You're not going to be able to play attractive football. It's going to be boring. But it does bring results, doesn't it? For me, I think that's a good match at Birmingham.
It depends who the two are in the middle. If you've got one that's a fixed one and one that goes forward, then that's 4, that's 3, 4, that's 5 people attacking. So it really depends. And I know that in the past he's been linked to being balanced or defensive or whatever. But I'll remind you that he was with Spain, the under-16s, playing 4-3-3.
Yes.
And of course, he's been at Madrid, in which defending was something that only the back four did. So he will adapt to what he's got. If you're telling me that Birmingham City is going to sign 3 super forwards, 2 wide players and a striker that scores 20 goals each, I tell you, he won't be defensive. So he adapts to what he has.
That's interesting because Birmingham, there's been so many managers. They brought in, with Clotet, it was going to be, they brought in Spanish players. Alvaro Jimenez, who's now left, Fran Villalba, who's gone back to Spain as well now. And it was going to be beautiful football, lots of passing. Clotet could help do that. But it was abandoned after about a few weeks because it wasn't bringing results. So you're telling me that Karanka will go with what they want? I mean, I do know that the club want to play some progressive football, but his reputation really at Forest and Borough was, it's to run a tight ship, wasn't it?
Because he had that. I insist on this idea. He's a flexible tactician, but if to actually be able to have 5 players up front that very, very good, you need a lot of money. I believe Birmingham City hasn't got so much money.
Well,
so if it's down
the owners put money in before. I mean, when Harry Redknapp came, there was a lot of money, and they spent, and of course they had points deducted for breaking financial fair play rules. We have no idea which way it's going to go now, but we do know that the owners want to bring kids through. Would that be an issue for Karanka? You mentioned he played under 16 coach. It was Real, wasn't it? When was it with the national side?
He was before he actually joined Real Madrid. I believe this will be a pull. It will be something that will convince them. If they really mean it, that's the other thing. If they really mean bring players through means they're going to get it wrong. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to concede goals because of their fault. If they're actually saying, do that, bring players through, he will do so. And he will take responsibility for every mistake of every single kid. But what I'm sure, and I've spoken to Karanka many times about this, I'm sure the one thing to actually have a connection with the public is via football, if you have the players for it, by a system that is exciting, by bringing players through. And if that's the case, then there's going to have to be a balance between winning every game and developing players. And that's why whatever gets discussed now is so important, because by the way you speak and by the little I know of Birmingham City, the targets will be put right now, and that means whatever is said now, he will fight for that. But if at the top or CEO or whoever starts halfway through it, changing the targets because they have a very good 3 months, and all of a sudden start thinking, oh, we'll promote, forget about the kids, then he'll go and say, you know what, that's not what we said.
He will say that. You think so? Yeah. So there's potential for. So it's got to be consistency. That's it, really, isn't it? But you're right. I mean, the under 16 at Spain, because he worked with people like De La Feo, didn't he? I think in.
And Jose, I think he was as well.
Jose,
who's now a little bit lost, but for a while he looked like a very promising player. De La Feo was considered by Karanka and Hierro the best 16-year-old they've ever seen. He
hasn't seen Jude Bellingham yet, then, Guillem.
Well, obviously that was
He's gone now.
when Deulofeu was 16. Yeah, that was an interesting one as well. I don't know how it's been sold in the story, but quite clearly Jude didn't want to leave when he was told to leave, and even cried in January when he found out.
Yeah, I saw that quoted to you. Where did you get that from, Guillem? About Jude?
Do you want me to tell you?
Lovely family.
To tell you my source.
Your source. You can reveal if you want.
No,
he didn't want to leave the club, so that listen, they've got a good price for him, even though he's going to go on and be sold for many, many times more. We think.
Oh no, now yes, now I think everybody knew that he had to leave. But when he first told, talking about 16-year-old whose dream was to get into the first team.
Yeah,
that's it. That was the dream. And before he actually realized that perhaps he could be even more ambitious if he wanted to, before he realized that, he was told, I think we're gonna have to go. We have to show you. And he did cry. But we know that players grow very, very quickly. At 16, he had to realize that his future was somewhere else. In fact, away from the country, because his decision was, okay, if I have to leave, it won't be for another English side. I'll go out and challenge myself, which is a really good sign for a 16-year-old, 17-year-old to say that.
I'm sure Karanka would love to have worked with him, but there's another Bellingham, there's a younger Bellingham who's just about to turn 15, who again has come through the England age groups, and word is he's very good as well. So let's see what happens there. But overall, I mean, you think he'll be a fit? I mean, the impression I got from your podcast was that he does want to get back, and he seems a very determined and serious man about. He studies the game, and he's learned from great people like Mourinho and Heynckes. I personally think he could be a very good fit for this club. Would you agree?
I agree. I think you'd all fall in love with him. I can tell you that. Even at Forest, when things didn't work out the perfect way, people are saying what a gentleman he was. This is a person that would be a club man. Club man means he never feels bigger than the club. And in this day and age, somebody that adapts to that, I think, is a positive message, not just to the fans, but to society. Really, there are bigger things than the manager, and that is the club. And if he respects it in the way that we're saying what the club is about, and everybody respects what they're promising right now, then it will be not only a good fit, but it could be a long-term relationship.
That would be something that hasn't happened at the club so far. But just to recap then, you think, I mean, this long drawn-out negotiation, what would your hunch be, having known the guy and known what makes him tick? Why is it taken so long to get this through, do you think?
Let's put it in a different way. He's had offers that were rejected within the 24 hours, and this hasn't. The rest, really, it won't depend on the money that he learned. It won't depend on the staff. It will depend on everybody making him feel that they're going to have a great journey together. If that doesn't happen and he sees something wrong, and the longer you speak, the longer you start to get to know people, no? Because if you negotiate for 3 days, it may be another month when you start to know who the people are like. Well, 2 weeks at least negotiating, and perhaps more, that means that everybody's listening to everybody and everybody's talking and everybody's getting to know each other.
Okay, just tell us about your podcast. It's Pure Football, and Blues fans, please watch it, because I learned a lot about Karanka from a young age right through to how he thinks the game should be played and how he deals with people. Where do we find it, Guillem?
You find it in the Apple, where you get the Apple podcasts and Spotify and whatever you download your podcast. And thanks, Chris, because it's a work of how do you say? You don't get anything out of it apart from the pleasure of actually sitting down with these people and talk, at length without looking for news. And I know, Chris, that you appreciate that kind of conversation, because for many, many years today, you have dedicated and still dedicated yourself to look for the news angle, because that's what you do. But I also know that you appreciate the sitting down, slow conversations, which I have with Rafa Benitez or Klopp or Jordan Henderson or Pep Guardiola or Jordi Cruyff or all those. So yeah, it's the Pure Football Podcast, and thank you for the plug.
Thanks very much, Guillem, and we look forward to seeing what happens. We don't know, but it's a fascinating story, and thanks very much for sparing your time today. Thanks, Guillem.
No problem. Cheers.